Matt's going to play his video presentation first, and he'll just give a little update.
Oh, there it is.
Okay. So thank you. Levi and Pastor has asked if we could just show our update video to you. Please be aware it is tailored towards churches who don't know who we are, so please don't take it as demeaning if we introduce ourselves and tell you historical stuff you already know. But hopefully it'll give you a little bit more of an understanding of where we're at in the ministry over there. You may know it already. If you do, I'm sorry. At least you'll get to see some interesting photos and videos and stuff. And then afterwards, they've asked if I just share a couple of examples of how your prayers have really helped us in Vanuatu. So thank you.
Can you see it?
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Matthew.
I'm Lydia. I can't see you.
We're the Meads. We're serving as missionaries in the islands of Vanuatu in the South Pacific. We'd like to take you on a short journey in the next few minutes of our ministry, how we ended up in Vanuatu and what it looks like today. Vanuatu is a group of islands located in the South Pacific, somewhat close to Australia and Papua New Guinea. It's an island nation with beautiful beaches and dense tropical jungle. Many of the people live in remote villages, living a traditional way of life that has been unchanged for generations. We are the Meads family. My wife and I both went to Vanuatu in 2006 as single missionaries. It was there that we met, fell in love, and eventually got engaged. We were married in 2011. Over the years, our ministry in Vanuatu has evolved and changed in many ways. Initially, we worked with other missionaries in more humanitarian-related ministries. In 2017, we decided to move to a village in South Santo and attempt to plant a church. The church averaged about 60 faithful members, including a few witch doctors. But we soon realized that none of these people were actually saved. They were all trusting a church building and good works, mixed with the traditional superstitions to keep them safe from evil spirits. They had simply added God as one more spirit to appease. As we spent time one-on-one with the village people, we realized the issue was that they did not have a foundational biblical knowledge that is required to understand who Christ is and our need for him. After much prayer, we decided to stop the church services and start over again, discipling smaller groups. In 2020, a cyclone destroyed our house in the village, and we had to move back to town. But we continued our relationships with these people and had regular outreach among these villages. Now we are teaching through the chronological Bible lessons in 3 different villages, all among the same language group and community that we originally began working with. God has opened doors and allowed us to share the gospel with people who never would have attended a church before. We are focusing on teaching the people from the Bible about who God is as our Creator, Master, and our righteous Judge. In the village of Taipu, we have seen 4 people come to trust the Lord as their Savior, and are now discipling these 2 couples and establishing a true church of genuine believers. The difference that we see in them is incredible as they continue to grow in their biblical knowledge and their relationship with God through Christ. In the villages of Vutnameli and Varavara, we are still in the evangelistic stage teaching from creation to Christ, with an emphasis on our need for the Savior. As we translate these lessons, we're also recording and distributing them on mega voice players for those who can't read. Sakali village is located in the West Coast region and requires 3 hours by truck, 1 hour by boat, and another hour hike to reach this village. We're also teaching the initial gospel stage of the lessons here, but because it is remote and more difficult to reach, we're planning to do it in block sections, 1 or 2 weeks of teaching, rather than a weekly meeting. The Berry family live in Luganville town and have been our friends for many years. Eileen is a strong believer and partner in ministry with us. She has been an incredible witness and encouragement to us over the years. Her twin sister, Linda, recently became a believer and is now also doing discipleship with Lydia. Their brother Edwin, through a tragic accident, is currently in prison for manslaughter. Through this tragedy, he has come to know the Lord, and we are now beginning to share the gospel with some of the rest of his family. While discipling Edwin in the prison, the guards approached us about teaching other inmates as well. We're now doing weekly teaching sessions with the inmates in the low-risk housing. We're excited to see what God is doing among the people in Vanuatu. Thank you so much for your part in giving and supporting this work. Please pray God will open the eyes of the lost in Vanuatu, that he will work in the hearts of those hearing the gospel and help the new believers to stand strong in their faith. Please pray for us as a family to have wisdom, grace, and strength as we serve. Thank you.
Thank you once again for praying for us. One of the most tumultuous times, I guess, in recent years for us has been when we found out Lydia was expecting with Josh, when she was pregnant, and that was sort of good news for us. We were happy about that. But then very quickly it turned to worry as Lydia just got extremely sick and just couldn't keep anything down 24 hours a day. So on the island we're at, we have a hospital there, and so we went to that hospital, and there was a emergency doctor from New Zealand who was volunteering there for a few years. She was in the emergency department. She saw us, and basically she just told me, you have to get your wife out of Vanuatu or she's going to die and you'll definitely lose the baby. They thought it was an ectopic pregnancy or something. I can't remember exactly. It's all a little bit of a blur. So she said, you need to get her out today if you can. So we started calling medevac companies to get somebody to come and pick us up and take us to New Zealand, which is where we're covered with our healthcare there. It's good healthcare. So we started calling around, but because it had just COVID had just become pretty big in New Zealand at that point, that closed down the borders, and it meant anybody who travelled would then have to do 2 weeks of quarantine afterwards. So none of the medevac companies were prepared to have 2 weeks with a whole flight crew out of action in quarantine after coming and picking us up. So we were talking to the doctor about this, and she said, well, you need to get to Port Vila straight away then. She said, my husband is a urologist in Port Vila. He's volunteering there as well, from New Zealand. And so Lydia had a few other health issues as well, related to operations in the past, that he would be able to help with, but she said, you really need to get to New Zealand. So we packed up within a few minutes. We packed up what we needed for a short trip, and miraculously managed to get a flight to Port Vila, because the flights there's a few a day, but they're always full. You can't get something a week out, let alone on the day off. So God provided a space for us to get to Port Vila. We flew down there, went straight to the hospital, and once again the diagnosis was the same. They said, you've lost the baby, but then you need to get to New Zealand to get things taken care of or whatever. I can't remember exactly everything, so I may, if you read up that letters around that time, you'll probably have a better view of what happened anyway. But basically, we just sent out a message to everybody asking for prayer. Lydia had issues with her kidneys at the same time, which is why the biggest reason why she had to get to New Zealand to get that taken care of. And so we were visiting the hospital for that, and at that stage we thought the baby was dead, or wasn't even a baby at that point. They were going to do a procedure to get out anything that was left, but then for some reason the doctor at the last minute said, no, we can't do that. He was worried about, or she was just somebody on the phone, was worried about, legal issues if that things didn't go the right way. So she said, we'll just wait on that, come back next week and we'll see what's going on there. So we went back to the hospital to check on the kidney issue, and as the nurse was doing the ultrasound for the kidney issue, she's like, oh, and the baby's nice and healthy too, which was a huge surprise to us, because at that point we thought that there wasn't a baby. So we're excited about that again, but still, they said now you really need to get back to New Zealand for specific care for some of the issues that were going on. So at that stage, New Zealand, as I said, they closed their borders. Nobody was allowed in or out. The only way to get into New Zealand was to put your name in a lottery system where the government would draw out so many names per day, because when you got to New Zealand, you had to go into 2 weeks of isolation in a managed quarantine facility or something like that. And because of that, they just did that. So we contacted our embassy, we contacted the people in charge of all of this, and they said, your special circumstances don't change it, you still just have to apply the same way everybody else does, and just hope that you get lucky. So we continued to do that. I applied the first time, it got denied. We had so much information from all the doctors in Vanuatu and in New Zealand who had dealt with Lydia in the past. Everybody was saying we needed to get back there. But they said, no, the first time it got turned down. We applied a second time, it got turned down. And meanwhile, we've got everybody praying that we know to pray that we can get out. God really did some miracles though that way, because the Baptist church in Port Vila, some good friends of ours down there, they have a church there. One of their deacons works for the Vanuatu government, and he was on the board that had been assembled to approve people leaving Vanuatu, because you also had to have permission to leave Vanuatu. And so he made sure that we got on that list. He said, your case is very specific, you obviously need to get out. So that really helped us get out of Vanuatu that way, but we still needed permission to come into New Zealand. So finally, on the third application, they finally approved it. And so we got to get on the flight. We spent a month in the capital just waiting, applying, and finally got on a flight to New Zealand later on that month. So when we got to New Zealand a while later, we found out it was even more miraculous that we made it, because we were applying under the special circumstances that Lydia was pregnant overseas in a country that had less than good health care, or the equipment to take care of things. Apparently at the same time frame that we were applying, there were 300 other couples in the same situation around the world. And out of 300 of us, only 29 got approved to enter New Zealand under the isolation systems. So we were part of that 29, so that was pretty amazing. We arrived in New Zealand, and as soon as we got into the hotel, they had us all locked in. You couldn't leave your room except for, what it's like, except for a couple of hours a day. No, half an hour a day. But as soon as we got in there, they immediately sent doctors and nurses to the door to give Lydia any medicine she needed and everything. So it already started getting better as soon as we got to New Zealand there. And then, the rest of the story writes itself. We stayed in New Zealand. We had lockdowns there, couldn't leave the house there. So it was actually quite nice, because my family are very loving and they just want to be with us 24 hours a day, and Lydia did not feel like that. So as soon as the day after we arrived, everyone was isolated in your homes. You couldn't leave your home, following the law over there with COVID. So we got to talk to them on the phone and on email, on Skype and that, but we didn't. Lydia could just sit and vomit in peace as she needed to, which was preferable. So yes, then later on Josh was born. So thank you so much for that. He's taught us a lot about ourselves and all the grandiose ideas we had of parenting and how wonderful we'd be at being parents. You learn a lot, and we realize that things always don't work out as you think they are. God is teaching us patience, and definitely we have very, very grateful heart. Humility, yeah. But we're so grateful for him. He really does add a lot. And he opens up opportunity as well to minister to other families in Vanuatu with kids around the same age that we didn't have that opening before. So that's just one example, but we have so many more examples as well of what God has done. And we know it is only through your prayers and those others behind us praying here in America and elsewhere as well. So thank you so much for your faithfulness to us. I'm sorry when we don't communicate clearly too. Somebody pointed out to me, they're like, you're always asking for prayer for things, but we don't always see the resolution to that. So, make sure you let us know what happened afterwards. And that's a very valid point. So please, if you ever see that we've asked for prayer for something and months later, you're like, whatever happened with that? Write to us, ask us, and no doubt we'll reply to you in person, but we'll probably end up updating everyone in the prayer letter, because sometimes we just forget. And we forget to give God the credit and glory for what he's done through the prayers of those around us. So thank you so much.
Ask any questions?
Oh, any questions? Yes. Yes, Mom.
Would you tell us how close y'all were to the doctor?
I kind of did, yeah. Like they were gonna do a procedure.
On the table?
Yeah,
They
yeah.
had
They
IV in
were
her arm already.
gonna, no, they didn't. They didn't have an IV. No, they
Not
didn't.
just go in and then the phone.
Yeah, that was. Yeah, that was. Yeah, they were gonna. Yeah, do a procedure to cut things out, but then they didn't. Yeah, that's true. Anything else? Any other questions? All right, excellent. Thank you, Levi.